How do you decide on a fertility clinic when there is just so much at stake with so many options and emotions involved? How can you be sure that you are finding the right clinic for you? Hi, I'm Nikki Hill, and I'm a certified NLP life coach, leadership advocate, and mummy through IVF. And I am here to share with you my personal experience of what it's like going through the process and how to choose a clinic based on my experience. Now, there are lots of things to consider here, but I have put together 14 tips, which I really hope will help you in your decision making. So let's dive in. Now, the first tip I want to talk about is geography. And geography can be something that we really need to consider based on where we live, but also where we work and all sorts of other things that we do within our life. Now, our first clinic that we went to, that was based on geography. And what I would say is that we did this in order to have access to the clinic. It made sense that we needed to be there sometimes at short notice, and other times we just wanted to make sure that actually the commute and the access was easier for us. I would say whatever clinic you do choose, there's a general rule of thumb that actually being available between maybe 40 minutes to an hour at certain points, depending on what treatment plan you're having, is ideal. So it is really worth considering geography, but it being on your doorstep doesn't always mean that it's the best clinic for you or they offer the right treatment. But if you can, consider how often you will need to be there and how easy it's going to be there for you to get there. Next up is communication. How does the clinic communicate you, and in what way? Do they use email, text, WhatsApp? And what is their tone and style? For me, there was a little bit of an adjustment in terms of receiving messages because they were very sort of short and sweet. They were very factual or just a basic appointment. So do consider how they're going to communicate with you, particularly if you are working. And actually, you might be in meetings and things like that. How can you have an interruption come through that you've got access to and that you don't miss an appointment? So how they communicate is really, really key. And also, how do they communicate any results or any urgent messages with you, whether they're good or bad? And do they communicate with your partner if you're going through the process with a partner as well? Or is that up to you? Whether it's good or bad news, is it up to you to then therefore communicate that on to your partner? Next, let's take a look at the environment. Now, plush furniture can look very nice, but is there substance beyond that when it comes to the clinic? And how do they approach high levels of patients? Do you feel that you're just part of a sort of churn and burn, or do you actually feel like you're getting attention? It is worth considering that certain geographies might have higher patient numbers due to their locality. So, for example, I experienced a much faster paced clinic when we chose to go with one that was in London. But do take a look at the environment and see whether it feels right to you. And actually, where are they investing their money? Now, a nice chair is great, but actually, I'm more about investing in the kind of medical sciences of things. So do just take a little look at what the environment offers and says to you. Surgeries. Where will your surgeries be performed? The clinic that you have visited might have satellite offices. It might be that you're actually attending them for different things, such as surgeries or blood taking or hormone level testing. So just make sure you have a good understanding of where it is that you'll be needing to attend and where those surgeries are occurring. Now, when it comes to recovery, will you have a private room or will you be in a recovery space with other patients? I've experienced both, and it took a little while to adjust because my first clinic offered me a space to recover by myself or with my partner. And then the next clinic that I went to actually had a shared space. So whilst it took a while to adjust, I actually really benefited from being in a shared space as I was with other patients and we were able to sort of bond and support each other through the process, which was really nice. It's also worth considering what any treatment is going to be like for your partner and where it's going to be. So for example, if your partner is the sperm donor, where is that going to be held? what's that like? And will you be able to be together when it comes to sort of recovery and the aftercare treatment when it comes to any surgeries? So do just ascertain how they can sort of facilitate what's important to you. Some people prefer to be very sort of separate and be very quiet after recovery, whereas others want to wake up with their partner holding their hand. So is that possible within the environment that you're attending? The next tip I want to talk about is work. How will your work be able to support you going through fertility treatment? Now, it might very well be that you're having to keep this or choose to keep this process very private. I had an experience that wasn't very pleasant. I was working during one treatment plan with a company that only offered a shared toilet space. So that was really unpleasant when it came to injecting and trying to find somewhere where I could just relax and spend a little bit of time. So do think about how it's going to play out when it comes to work, how easily you can manage in terms of applying any treatment such as an injection to yourself or coming out of work and attending any appointments. A small factor to consider is also how what you wear at work might impact how easy it is for certain treatments to take place. For females, there's often a lot of injecting in the stomach area, and there can be some swelling and things like that. So you can find that some of your typical work clothes might actually be a little harder to wear, or sometimes actually can aggravate an area. So do think about how work's going to impact. Work environments are getting better and are now looking at how they can support individuals going through fertility treatment. And if you're lucky, that might be your place of work. But if it isn't, just consider what that looks like and how nice and pleasant you can make it for yourself. And if, for example, you do have shared facilities and they don't feel too great, is there somewhere else that you can go? Is there somewhere near you, I don't know, whether it's a hotel or even just a department store that have some facilities where you can just have a bit of privacy and administer any medications that you might need to do. Relaxation. Does your clinic offer you that place, somewhere where you can relax and take 5? Now, it might not be that important to you, and that's okay too, but for some, actually being able to go to their clinic and relax, particularly if you're doing appointments in between work or after work, is really vital for you to have a successful experience. So it's worth considering if that's high up on what you need. How conducive is the clinic to you being able to step into it, step into the mind frame of this is what I'm here to do, and just make sure that you have a relaxing experience within your clinic. Access to staff. Now, this is another thing. Staff will obviously change over, staff will do different shifts, but what is the access and availability that you have with staff? Will you have different doctors? The likelihood is yes, they'll carry out different procedures, but will there be one main point of contact for you? If you have a moment where you have a question, uncertainty, a wobble, you actually feel that you need a little reassurance, is there somebody you can go to, and how do you access that member of staff? So it's just good to know if you have any concerns or any further questions, who is that person? How can you access them? And where will you access them? Are they at the main clinic? Are they at any satellite offices? So it's just really good to understand how will staff handle you as a patient. Next up is cost. And for something like fertility, we can find money out of nowhere. But what I did find really useful, not something that we did in the beginning, was to set a budget, to have a limit on what we could actually afford when it came to our treatment. I also want to talk about hidden costs. So do think more broadly about what your treatment is going to cost. There were things that we didn't expect in the beginning that we paid for, such as a nutritionist, acupuncture. You might find that you would like different forms of exercise or relaxation, whatever is you're in tune with. So I certainly did yoga, the odd facial and massage, dependent on where you are in your treatment, can feel really, really good. There might also be medications that aren't within the plan, and there'll certainly be scans that the likelihood is you'll want to pay for those on top. So just really think about, what is my budget and what might I need to find the money for when I'm going through the treatment. And what we found personally was that actually setting a budget really helped us make decisions, particularly towards the end when we had to decide what version, what kind of treatment was going to give us the most chance of us being a family. Next up is success rates. Now, my preferred choice was asking about success rates in person when I visited the clinic. The reason for me that mattered is I wanted to get up-to-date success rates. Sometimes some of the data and the publications can be a little bit confusing and they can be outdated. So it was really important for me to understand what the current success rates were and actually how they answered my question. We have to remember that these are businesses. So sometimes they are very good at the sales speech and letting you believe that actually that you're going to have more success than actually might be realistic for you. So it's really important just to make sure that you are getting the absolute facts. You're not getting sales speech. And sometimes there can be a real difference between who is selling to you and who is actually doing the treatment. So a very good salesperson isn't necessarily the person who is your doctor or anything like that. So do just check what you're being told is real, it's live, and it's right for you. And the successes that they're having versus the patient numbers makes sense, feels good, and where you want to be. A small but really important point to think about is staffing. So we went to a total of 3 clinics, and at one clinic within a period of time, so actually over Christmas, was very, very understaffed, and we experienced a very different experience. Now, it wasn't wholly terrible, but it was a really different experience. So it's good to understand what they do and how they cope with periods such as Christmas, or if they are just genuinely understaffed for a little while. And also within that, there is a bit of sort of safety around the procedure. So if they are understaffed, how are they looking after your samples? How are they making sure that staff exhaustion isn't causing mistakes? And just really kind of understanding how well staffed is this clinic, because that does really correlate to service and safety when it comes to being a patient. Treatment plans. It is absolutely okay to question why you are being offered a treatment. The tendency, and I know I absolutely experienced it, is when something was offered, I'm yes, I want to have it. I didn't want that one thing that I didn't do to haunt me. But actually, how relevant is it to you? And also, like I said before, do bear in mind, these are businesses. They are in the business of making money. So do just make sure that actually it is something that you need. And if it's just a tick box or it might help, then it might not be for you. There might be dangers attached to the procedure as well. So do examine what you're being offered and seek a second opinion. You know, maybe go back to your GP or somebody that's had a similar procedure, just to see how worthwhile and valuable it was to them in terms of the process. So just because you're being offered something doesn't necessarily mean that you need to take up that part of the treatment. And if you're not sure, ask. And if you're still not sure, just seek a little bit of further advice with a second opinion. And that leads me nicely to trust your instincts. If you go somewhere and you feel unsure or excited, what's really going on here? If you're feeling too excited, could it just be a really good sales pitch? You're thinking, yes, this is how I'm going to finally have my family. So I just really want to remind you to be really in tune with who you are. And there will be the answers as to whether the clinic feels right or doesn't feel right, or whether there's something you just want to find out a little bit more. So, you know, anything too exciting or something that actually doesn't feel too genuine might actually be because it's not, and it's not the right place for you. So just be mindful of instinct. What are you thinking and feeling? I know it's a really emotional period of time, so you might find that actually your instinct does feel a little bit clouded, but just try and tap into it and really sort of feel, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right for you. And it's okay to start over. I know it can feel really exhausting. I know there can be those feelings of, well, the clinic has just started to get to know me, or they know how my body is working, but it might not be the right clinic to stay with. We learned that. We went to a clinic that was local to us, but the actual treatment plan wasn't bespoke enough. It was a little bit too cookie cutter. Every patient was going through pretty much the same thing, and we needed something more. And so I did have those doubts. I did wonder. We decided to go to London, which wasn't where we lived. So it was a massive investment. We had to literally relocate ourselves for a couple of weeks at a time because we needed to be there at 7 a.m. We were often there late in the day. And at times I'd be given the call to say, can you get here in the next half an hour or an hour? But don't be afraid to change. It just might mean that some more considerations need to come into the mix. But it's really, really worth making sure that you find the right treatment for you. It can be disheartening. I know it's disheartening. I've experienced it myself, but it is really worth the change. If it doesn't feel right, or now, or when you've started to understand the treatment plan and entered into it and it's not right for you, please do, again, trust your instincts and be willing to start over in order to find the right treatment and the right clinic for you. So there is a lot to consider. Those are the main tips that I hope will help. Do consider your support group. You are likely to go under general anesthetic. That can be a big thing, particularly if you're not used to medical procedures. So it's really nice to have those around you that can help you, support you, and give you what you need during this time. If you're doing it privately, just make sure that you have ways of relaxing and supporting yourself through this process. And I really hope these 14 tips do. I hope they help give you a list of questions and perhaps some insights into finding the right clinic for you and removing some of that overwhelm. And I truly wish you the absolute best of luck when it comes to starting your family. So if this has helped you, please subscribe. There'll be more. Please like or share if you know a friend who's going through some fertility treatment. And if you have any tips, I'd love to hear what they are. Share them in the comments below, and you might just be helping somebody else who is going through the same as you.